nothing left for me to hate, so I can lay me down, my brothers, on the ground. I bled today until Coyote comes to raise me up and carries me
Hello and welcome to the Scottish Rugby Podcast, the podcast who likes to cut into our different nations of the Six Nations, like Bill Mata likes to cut through number 10s. I don't know if any of you have been watching Bill Mata's journeys and fun times down in the English Premiership, but oh my word, just Google Bill Mata hits a 10 and it's just quite sweet and wonderful to watch. Anyway, sorry about that. I slid off. I was just watching the beginning of the pod, and if any of you have watched it on the live stream, we've got a wee video that plays, and just sitting watching Bill Mata putting an offload to wee Jimmy. What was Jimmy's second name? The Edinburgh player. Anyway, it takes that try. Yeah, and then watching David Denton and Big Ben Toulis running around trying to follow Hamish Watson as he runs around pinballing everybody, and it's just these two big lumps running after him. Anyway, I have totally and utterly digressed, but I'm totally and utterly happy that I haven't mentioned anything about what time we're recording and all that, because Alan's not here, so it's fantastic. So I hope you're all well tonight, especially during these tough times. And those days that you're confused of whether we were just having a chat before, whether it's okay to now buy a Tesla car because Elon Musk has stepped off the Death Star. I'm not entirely all that sure, but we'll stay out of this because I can't talk about that, because if I want to go to America, they might pull up my socials and I might not get in. So anyway, I hope you're all well. There are tough times. To aid with this and to activate. To alleviate some financial pressure, we're going to do a free for all pod tonight. And to our lovely Patreons, we do love you. We do value your support. We really, really value your support. But we thought we'd share a little bit of the love tonight and have a chat about it. We thought there's not much going on. There's not a massive amount going on, especially being an Edinburgh supporter. There's not much going on. But then once I started writing my notes, it got a little bit busier, so we will move on quickly because I've just spent 5 minutes 50 rambling. So tonight joining me, I'm Craig Manson. How are you doing all? I hope you've had a great week. Tonight joining me is a Scottish qualified through a Selkirk granny, Mark Riley. I don't know if it is a Selkirk granny, but Mark Riley, the border badger. How are you doing, Mark?
I'm doing very well, thanks. And my grannies were Edinburgh and West Lothian, respectively, but very much Scottish.
I love it. Brogues and red trousers among you. That's
not important where my granny's from, mate.
we tartans, wee brown shoes and tartan skirts. That's I'm maybe showing my granny wasn't like that either, but you can anyway. And also, David Nusafora has actually been in contact with us and has encouraged us to move Jonny on because he's not. I don't know if he is Scottish qualified. So, Jonny McGinty, how you doing? I know you're raging tonight, so we'll needle you a little bit.
Thanks very much. Do you know what? It's funny that this is the angle you've gone down for the introductions, by the way, because one of the kids in my class said to me at the end of last week, Mr. McGinty, if you had to marry another teacher in the school, who would you marry? And without even stopping, and I'll not embarrass her with her real name, I said, "Oh, it'd be Miss Donovan, easy." And every single kid in my class was like, "How did you know that so quickly? How did you say that straight away?" I was like, "Well, she's Australian, and if I get an Australian passport, I could play for Scotland." But none of them understood it. So.
Well, gentlemen, it's great to have you. How's your week been? What anything been going on in your week this week? I know that Johnny's about to tell us about him joining the technological revolution, but Mark, how about yourself?
Yeah, I went to London.
Are the streets paved with gold?
Yes. Funny story related to rugby. I was in Twickenham town, going to the international one year with my cousin and his best pal, and we're walking down the street, and his best pal's on the phone to his mate back home in West Calder, saying, "Yeah, of course they are. The streets are paved with gold." And then he stopped and went, "Oh, I found 20 quid." Literally 20 quid lying in the pavement in front of him. True story. But no, I doing a wee bit of consultancy work for a company that I've been having a few dealings with. So yeah, that was fun. I don't get down. I haven't been down in 20 months probably now. And I do like visiting London. The only problem being this it was an all-day workshop and it was held in the Holmes Hotel, which is round the corner from Baker Street, and I haven't been able to get the song out of my head for days.
Walking around with your imaginary saxophone.
Exactly.
Or that's what you like to tell people. I mean, that's a different story. Johnny, the technical revolution has visited upon you.
Yeah, I'm excited. I got a new iPad to play with at work, so that's been fun. I also, as you know, Craig, as part of my campaign to be the sort of person that gets to play for Scotland, bought myself a paddleboard this week. Been out paddleboarding.
Yes, I saw that.
I've like fully jumped the shark, but it's been good fun. So I signed up to a triathlon that involves paddleboarding. So
Jonny Iron Man McGinty rides again. I tell you, that's for sure. Well, listen, good luck to you, man. I need two of them to keep me afloat, but that's a different story. But
just before you move on, Craig, just before you move on, Brian Dalglish on the chat has posted Johnston. It was James Johnston.
Jimmy Johnston.
The offer went to. So thanks for that, Brian.
Love Jimmy. I love Jimmy Johnston, but then again, we all love Jimmy Johnston just because of that one try. That sounds terrible, but yeah, it was him and Mark Bennett were quite a good combination in the centre for Edinburgh. But anyway, those were the days. Hello and welcome to the Scottish Rugby Podcast. We're brought to you by the Scottish Rugby blog. Our podcast is part of the sports social network, and don't forget to give us a follow or a like on your favourite podcast app. If you're watching on YouTube, please hit the subscribe button, and don't forget to give us a follow on social media. You can find all the links on our site, www.scottishrugbyblog.co.uk. It's well worth going onto the blog because there's some fantastic articles that have been written, and we talk. You get to read about many different things. I think there's a wee bit about a certain number 8 leaving Glasgow being written as well, I think, on the blog this week. So
just to be clear, I can't swear at all tonight.
You can't swear, no, at all, mate. Sorry.
As we get into Henko territory already.
Yeah.
I have some thoughts.
Oh, I've got quite a good take as well, but I have to say it was kind of, anyway, that's a different story. If you're listening on Apple and like what we do, please leave us a review on Apple Podcasts. And this is the big bit. If you like more content and want to support what we do, you can subscribe to our Patreon from just £3 plus a VAT a month. And that gives you access to our super secret Facebook group. And the second part of tonight's podcast, which you're not going to get tonight because we're free to air tonight, and we're going to give everyone a little blast of what we do.
You will get the ad-free version, though.
But you will get the ad-free version
for
our Patreon members, and we really do value what our Patreon members. We really do. we like to do the odd free to air just to let people know what we're talking about. And also when
we'll need to come up with some summer silliness for Patreons. Maybe a little bit less than usual this year because there's Lions on. But I did my Bluey 15 last year, so I'll have to think of something.
Well, there could be, maybe we do something like we do one a week for Lions for everybody, and then do a couple of little ones during the week if we can deal with it and stomach seeing each other on a regular basis. We'll wait and see how that goes. Just to cover each game.
It's not entirely out of the question. We might have some time fillers of hands in the ruck during the Lions tour.
Oh, I'm sure we will. Yeah, absolutely. So, but yeah, we will move swiftly on to news. And Mark, I'll come to you in a second. But Jonny, we have talked about this for how long? Scotland women finally making the jump to the big house for next year's. I was going to call it the Calcutta Cup match, but it's not a Calcutta Cup match. But it's a Six Nations England v Scotland. They're dipping their toes in to see if they can how they're going to work Murrayfield and Scotland women. What a fantastic opportunity! There's been a few naysayers out there, Jonny, but what a fantastic opportunity to finally get Scotland women into Murrayfield and give them the experience that they deserve.
Yeah, 100%. I would say I don't think the naysayers are completely wrong. I think the concerns that some people have are probably valid concerns. I think that Mark's got some of them, and I think when he shared them with us earlier in the week, every single concern that people have been a bit like, yeah, I can kind of see where you're coming from. But the bottom line of it is, before we get to anything else, they are our national team and they deserve our national stadium. So I have concerns about what the crowd and the atmosphere might be like for a Scotland England game, but that's not a reason to not do it. I think, when you're the senior national team, you should be playing in the national stadium. The women's football team plays most of their games in Hampden. There's no reason why the rugby team shouldn't be playing most of their games in Murrayfield. I think it might take a while to get to what we hope it will be. I don't think that the first game or two will necessarily be the atmosphere that you'd expect at Murrayfield. But I think, the only way to get it there is to keep doing it. And like you said at the start, they absolutely deserve this. It's the stadium they should be playing in, so good on them.
Yeah, and Mark, I know that you'll probably talk about your concerns, but looking at the ticket prices, that's certainly something that Scottish Rugby have been positive about. They've put some good ticket prices together so that there is the opportunity for plenty of fans to go, because it's there's good transport links, there's good there's plenty of parking out at the park and ride and stuff like that. But also the main thing is that the ticket prices are not even close to what the men's game demand. But on the other side of things, that's good because you've got the option to bring some new fans in.
Yeah, I confess I haven't seen the ticket prices or haven't taken them in. I think, I know I mentioned it to you guys. My concern is not, I think it's fantastic for the women, as you rightly say, to be given the opportunity they deserve to play at the National Stadium. And that side of it, I totally get that. The other side is they've only just really started calling the Hive home. And several of them, including Rachel Malcolm, have been interviewed and saying, it's great because it is our home. We feel like we've got an atmosphere. We feel like we've got a crowd. I went to the internationals this year, as you know, in the Six Nations, and the atmosphere was fabulous. I was raving about it. I genuinely think it was a better atmosphere than I was experiencing at a full Murrayfield for Autumn Internationals, for example, right? I genuinely think it was a fabulous atmosphere. Craig, I know you went to Edinburgh games there when they were only getting 7,000-8,000.
I went to Edinburgh games when they were getting 2,500.
Right.
It was me, 10 or 15 cheers, then another person, 10 or 15 cheers. Yeah, it was, no, anyway, sorry.
And to me, I think that's the risk that they run. Because don't get me wrong, I think I said to you guys, I think they could put 30,000 in Murrayfield for the England game. My worry is 25,000 of them will be wearing white, because the Hive was, I think it was almost entirely full for France. They had opened all stands for Ireland, but for Wales, they hadn't even opened the, can't remember which one it is, the far one, opposite where they come in.
Okay, yeah, the Riverside one.
The Riverside stand, yeah. They hadn't even opened that for the Wales game, right?
Yeah.
So that's not due to a problem with transport links, inexpensive tickets, because the ticket price is good, the transport links are all sound, the atmosphere is great. It's the same two internationals. So how's that going to feel at Murrayfield? And yes, I get they have the opportunity, but I don't think it'll feel as good a support to them, even with more people.
But is it probably, and this is going to sound incredibly defeatist, but when you're going up against the Red Roses, is it better to give them the opportunity to play in Murrayfield and do all of that when, dare I say it, it doesn't matter as much because they're probably going to get beaten. Whereas you want a closer. That sounds terrible, and I really, please don't take it the wrong way, but I just think, when you've got a Wales game or you've got especially an Italy game, you want the place to be bouncing, and that's where the Hive will give you.
And I know exactly where you're coming from, because the crowd could potentially make a difference in those games. In fact, we've seen the crowd make a difference in those games. It was probably the crowd that won Scotland that Wales game this year, because in a similarly close game in Cardiff, Wales might have won it. Mm-hmm. The crowd will not be the difference maker against the Red Roses.
And I think the crowd had an awful lot to do with the Ireland one as well at the end. That was down to the last minute, and what an atmosphere! I mean, that was just fantastic. I'm sure I read today that they're playing all 2026 games at Murrayfield.
Right, okay.
I'm sure I just picked it up as a headline because it surprised me, because I'm sure the original thing only said England.
Yeah, the post the other day certainly only said England.
Yeah.
Right. So maybe that's just been somebody else on.
Well, from what I know, that there are players that are excited about it, and I think it's going to be interesting. And listen, hey, let's dip our toes and see. And as we've talked about, they are a national team, so they should be playing in a national stadium. Although the Hive is, when the Hive's rocking, the Hive is rocking, and that is one thing I would say. No matter how many poles are in the way of people watching. So moving on, but not totally unrelated, and we'll maybe talk about this further down the line in Hands in the Ruck, but Louise McMillan and Christine Belisle have been on social media. Both have been left out of the squad, the World Cup squad. Christine Belisle obviously has come out about her personal issues and how she's been dropped from the squad, and she's not been particularly happy about it. Jonny, we thought we were past this, right?
Yeah. It would not be an exaggeration to say I was a bit crushed when I saw Christine Belisle's post. I'm a big Christine Belisle fan. I have been for a long time. Obviously, that's her view of the situation. That's what she thinks has happened from her point of view. There's been no response from anybody at all, but given some of the past things that have happened in the SRU, and particularly regarding the women's team, I would struggle to not believe her. And if that's the case, it's a bad one, and it's the kind of worst there's been for a while. Very, very upsetting if what she's saying turns out to all 100% be what happened. And like I say, because of past behaviour, I have no reason to believe that that's not what happened.
There has been some response, and we'll come to that in a second. But Mark, there is a balance here, and again, we've talked about a response, and we'll mention it in a second. But there is a balance that is needed, especially in this high sort of pressure athlete situation, where if you are moving further, in a different direction, there are going to be people who are dropped and big stars that are going to be dropped. But the balance doesn't seem to be there from what I can see. When you've had personal issues, but that should be you should be actually an arm round you rather than say, cut you loose.
Yeah, I mean, players will be dropped, and for whatever we think those reasons might be, then we can't say here whether they're reasons of mentality, mental place, or the way they're played doesn't fit what is wanted from the team anymore. We don't know that. We don't know what that setup is, and we can't know. But for me, the most disappointing thing is the way it seems to have been dealt with, particularly for Louise McMillan and Christine Belisle, because they're not like one cap nobodies. They've both got a bucket of international caps here. And it strikes me that they were just simply not told. Just really sorry, you're gone. And that's not right. That's a human issue. That's not even a rugby issue, right?
Yeah, well,
and it's the fact that not only were they not included the squad, but their contracts are cancelled.
Well,
they weren't renewed.
Yeah, and it's worth remembering that as well. This is a work and livelihood and well-being thing, and they're just gone. And it's it's not good. It's conscious we're not on Patreon. It's very not good.
Yeah, it is one of those ones. It is difficult because when we, there has been a response from Brian Eason. He was interviewed and I've been trying to find the article again and I can't find the article, but he has said he's been in touch with them. They have been not consulted, but he has been talking to them about it, and he is very much down the line of, if you're not performing, we are moving on a different direction, and you do find in professional sport contracts, you have your contract, and then one day, and then when it comes to renewal, sometimes your contracts don't get renewed, and that is a difficult thing to go through. But from what he is saying is that they're not out of the woods just yet. They are still in contention for the World Cup squad. They are on standby if they want to be. So it's difficult because obviously we hear what both players have come out and told everyone on social media, and I'm not saying that they're wrong. I'm not saying it didn't happen, but they are obviously very, very hurt and very, very upset about, and quite rightly, not being included in the squad when they've been performing well. Christine Belisle is a we've always talked about this, and Mark, lately since you've joined us, we've always talked about the Scotland women's squad and how she's been a fantastic addition. Yeah. So yeah, it's never nice, but I think there has been quite a lot of a knee-jerk reaction in one way because everyone's hearing what they're saying, but nobody's really listening to what has been said from the SRU. But then on the other side of things, the SRU are doing their usual, being fairly quiet about these things and not getting involved in it, which is very, very difficult. But the door's not closed on both players, and I hope first things first, they are well and they are trying to do their best to move forward. But hopefully this isn't the end of their journey with Scotland. We will see. Again, moving further on, more social media coming out-ish talk, and Johnny Henko-Venter has been coming out talking about how he's had to leave Glasgow. He's not he loves Glasgow. He wants to stay at Glasgow, etc. Again, it's not a great optic for Scottish rugby, even though David Nucifora has very much said that he's here to work the Scottish pathway.
Yeah. Look, I was there on Friday night. The reception that Henkel got when he came off, when he was subbed off on Friday, and then again when he came back on for the jersey presentation, and the way he was interacting with fans up in the stand as he was getting ready to come back on, like, you could tell how heartbroken he was. And it's been kind of an open secret that that's what's happening for a lot of these players for the last few weeks. And it is absolutely mind-blowing that that's the approach that Nucifora is going to take. I understand that's the approach he took in Ireland. I'm assuming it's part of the reason that the SRU was attracted to him. Scotland is not Ireland. Scotland doesn't have the player base that Ireland's got. It doesn't have the setups that Ireland's got. It hasn't got the private schools paying for the entire Leinster squad that Ireland's got. We have none of that. And I'll tell you right now that Glasgow would not have been the URC champions last year without Henko Venter and without Sebastian Cancelleri. Glasgow's social media channels today, the Instagram today, was full of videos of Seba's try against Munster in the semi-finals last year. And, like, I love Henko, right? He is one of my favourite Glasgow players of the last few years. I will hold my hands up and say it. I think he probably would be equally open about it. Henko Venter's never going to be a Springbok. So Henko Venter is the kind of player who's around when your internationals are missing. And he is fantastic. And he wants to play for Glasgow. And Glasgow want him. And then for Nucifora to turn to go, yeah, actually, no, we want all just Scottish people. We'll not see Glasgow or Edinburgh in the quarterfinals of a Champions Cup again for a long time, because we don't have the squad to do that. If you're going to take all the internationals away, not let them sign players like Buffelli. Buffelli's the one that absolutely blows my mind leaving Edinburgh. Like him, like Seba Cancelleri, like Henko. We will not compete in the URC, and we will certainly not compete in the Champions Cup. It is self-sabotage on an absolutely mind-blowing level. It's like got my blood right up all week. And it was an open secret this was what was happening, but like, good on Henko for coming out and saying it, because someone needed to say it. It's mental.
But then, Mark, the timing's not great, because Henko has just, he signed before he came out. There was a good few weeks before he came out and talked about Glasgow and this, that, and the other. When he'd signed a big money deal to France, he's not that upset, is he?
He certainly seems to be. Just because he's valued elsewhere doesn't mean he wanted to move. And I think the bigger deal from me, and I mentioned it to you guys before, is that Franco has clearly said, if it was up to me, he'd be staying. And for me, that gives us another side of a huge problem for Scottish rugby, that how will we attract top coaches if what they're being told is we can introduce a new rule because some Aussie consultant we've brought in thinks it's a good thing, and you guys have to toe the line. There's no way we're attracting Stuart Lancaster, right?
It's not exactly a surprise that he's in Ireland within 3 months of Nucifora leaving, is it?
No, quite.
Yeah, but then on the other side of things, and by the way, I'm playing devil's advocate here just now, because I am absolutely gutted that the King is leaving Edinburgh, Buffelli is away. And so I feel exactly the same way about how people are feeling about Henko. But if you look at now, I'm going to use this example, and the team haven't done very well since he left, but Ireland are seem to be doing very well because they've picked a favourite, and that's the one they're backing. But they had this in Ulster with Pienaar, because Pienaar was told we can't. You're going to have to leave because we can't have a certain amount of non-Irish players, and you had and they are saying, like, you can sign foreign players, but you can't have as many,
but that's fine. Ireland have 4 pro teams. We have 2.
Yeah.
Our teams get absolutely emptied during international windows as it is.
Mm-hmm.
If what's left is journeymen, albeit Scottish qualified journeymen, we will get thumped year in, year out in the URC. Glasgow will not be competitive. Edinburgh will not be competitive because we simply can't sustain 2 large enough squads, only 2 large enough squads, plus feeding the international team. We don't have the bodies, and we don't have the playing base. I mean, we've got 10,000 registered male players?
Yeah.
And I made the point to you guys, one of my favourite work sayings is none breeds success like success. When our teams are winning, I mean, I wonder how many kids in the west of Scotland, youngsters, got more into rugby because Glasgow are champions, right? Because it's a well-known effect, and even to the degree when England won the World Cup in 2003, even Scotland got more young players into the game after it because it was a UK team that won. So Glasgow's success in the west of Scotland will have brought more players into it. If Glasgow are not competitive, Edinburgh are not competitive, kids are just not going to pick up a ball. Why would they?
So we're not going to get a situation like Leinster at the moment. So Edinburgh aren't going to announce the signing of their new Damien McPennell, who's going to come and visit because he's coming over. He's got a Scottish granny. There's just not, we're going to get Scottish granny people, but we're not going to get the journeymen that we need to fill up the squad for international weekends.
Yeah.
Competitiveness of the 2 Scottish club sides has basically just been completely underwritten in 3 months he's been in the job, and by the way, 2 of those months he's been sworn around Australia with the Lions. He's done very little actually being in Scotland other than completely rip the base out of both of our pro teams.
Yeah, it's
look at how many top quality Scottish or Scottish qualified players there are before he thinks that we could fill both pro teams and the national team with Scottish or Scottish qualified players and have anyone be competitive.
Yeah.
And I know that sounds horrible, and I know we're supposed to be like, we are the Scottish Rugby podcast, we're supposed to talk about Scottish rugby all the time, but we've been doing that for a long time, and we know exactly how many Scottish qualified players there are to fill these professional roles, and it's not enough to have 2 competitive club teams and a competitive national team.
Yes.
Yeah, well, that's I suppose that what you've got to remember is he's obviously going to pick Edinburgh as his favourite team, and we're going to get all the good stuff, and then Glasgow's going to be left alone to go and play their football. But it is going to, for me. It's easier to take for me because I'm an Edinburgh fan, and we're at a level where, and we'll maybe talk about this in a minute anyway, but we're at a level now where we're fighting for 8th place. And so if we can develop more and more Scottish players coming through and do what Nucifora has done in Ireland, I know you're saying this isn't going to happen because we don't have the player pool, and I understand that. But we're in a different situation in Glasgow because Glasgow are riding high at this moment and have an opportunity to win the URC back to back, and whereas Edinburgh don't. So there will be this sort of split, very much of, well, we're at this level now, and you're looking at, we're sitting there wondering who's. Well, you have a situation where Darcy Ray is being considered to be pulling on a Scotland jersey at Tighthead, because we don't have that sort of playing pool of props. So there's got to be, you've got to look at it. In my opinion, you've got to look at it with both hands and say, well, is it going to make the Scottish team stronger, and is there going to, there's going to be a bit of pain especially by Glasgow. From what I can see, we'll definitely have some pain as well. That's for sure. But are we going to be in a situation where we are going to strengthen the Scottish squad because of it over 5 years? And that's the question I have to ask myself, and I don't know where. I don't have an answer for it. But I'm in a different situation.
You look at the positions where we're losing these players from, though. It's not tight head. Like, it's Glasgow are losing Henko, right? And then come Six Nations time, we're going to lose Jack Dempsey, Matt Fagerson, Rory Darge, and then also not have Henko. You guys are going to lose Buffelli, and then come Six Nations time, you're going to not have Duhan, you're going to not have Darcy Graham. You're also going to not have Buffelli either. Like, that's, and I understand, like, it's maybe just the luck of where the contracts have come out and stuff, but it is, we are losing players in positions where we're actually doing okay for players, but our two pro teams are going to lose a lot of players in those positions. You're going to lose a lot of outside backs. We're going to lose a lot of back rows, and we're not going to have the quality that we used to have to fill those spots during the internationals. And it's like, I don't understand why you would do that.
No, I agree. Yeah.
So, well, we may as well talk about this then. So, Vodacom Bulls 42, Edinburgh 33. At the weekend, Edinburgh bowed out of the URC playoffs. Mark, it was a good fight. Edinburgh put up a good fight. At half time, the game could have been anyone's.
Very much so. What disappointed me is the scale and nature of the loss after Edinburgh went 21-8 up after 30 minutes and looked for all the world like they were in control.
Yeah.
I thought it was a good game, and they played well, certainly in the first half. I don't know what happened at halftime. I mean, the South Africans will tell you it's altitude. I think too much is made of that. These guys are all professional athletes. Glasgow certainly put that one to bed firmly last year. I don't. There were mistakes. There were some individual errors. I mean, Magnus Bradbury is not going to forget that fumbled take from the kickoff in any kind of hurry. And I thought some of the Bulls' tries were pretty soft, if I'm honest.
And I guess, we are, is this Scottish Rugby stroke Edinburgh Rugby 20-minute going missing? Well, it seems to let them back in, and Glasgow have it now and then, but Glasgow don't. They tend to go missing for a game rather than 20 minutes. They seem to either be on the game, be on it for the full game, or they go missing.
It wasn't even 20. It was like 5. It was 5 minutes of a couple of really, really soft tries where the Bulls were running at a disorganised defence and put themselves out of sight. And like, I did not expect Edinburgh to be as competitive for as long as they were. I certainly didn't expect them to be 15, 16 points up for as long as they were. It's a sore one to take. I imagine it's a much sorer one to take if you're an Edinburgh fan. But it was just like a couple of minutes of they weren't paying attention, and the Bulls absolutely did them for it.
Yeah. And then, so Johnny, this is the question that comes up all the time. Are we the plucky losers? Or should everyone be patting them on the back and saying, well, you went out to South Africa and you showed them for 20 or 30 minutes, or you showed them for 50 minutes? Or do we expect more? I'll give you my answer fairly soon, but I think I know how you feel.
I think Edinburgh were in a semi-final of the Challenge Cup and in the playoffs and in a good place to win that playoff game at halftime. I think at that point you've got to be saying what's going on here, because how are you getting into these positions and coming away with nothing? And I don't know. Maybe the Bulls are a better team than Edinburgh. The Bulls are a really, really good team. But Edinburgh were in it for a long time. And maybe Bath are a better team than Edinburgh, but Edinburgh were in that for a long time. So what's happening?
Yeah. And Mark, is it, so then moving on to that, Mark, is it that we don't have the depth that we've just been talking about? Is it the fact that we go to the bench and we're bringing players on that maybe don't cut the mustard, or is it the fact that we go missing on and just because, just as Jonny says, 5 minutes of disorganisation and we've lost 2 tries?
Possibly a bit of both. I don't think the depth is a huge problem. I mean, there's injury issues at the moment, but obviously there's injury issues for everybody at the end of the season to one degree or another. But yeah, Edinburgh went missing for 10 minutes. And it's interesting, one of the posts, again from Brian, saying in almost every game of the season, Edinburgh have lost the 10 minutes after half-time.
Yeah.
And I was joking with somebody, I can't remember, it might have been one of you guys, but we were joking about the team talks by PowerPoint, right? Because they seem to come out and flag in the first 10, 15 minutes of the second half, and I don't understand why.
Yeah.
I would love to know, but a team that's 21-8 up with 30 minutes on the clock should not be getting done by 40 odd points. They should not be letting another 34 points in at that stage.
Yeah.
Because that's what you're talking about. The Bulls scored 34 points in 50 minutes.
Yeah. So, Jonny, just to finish up, and I'll talk to you in a minute about Mark as well, but I'm going to ask the same question we've talked about probably for the last 3 weeks. The results have been going better. Edinburgh scraped themselves into the mathematically into the playoffs. Everyone in the squad or most of the people who are being put out in front of the cameras are talking about how things are building, things are coming together. Is Everett safe?
I don't know. The thing is, like, I've not known for a while, but I've been quite sure of my own opinion. Now, not only am I not sure if he's safe, I'm actually not sure if I think he should be safe or not. See, up until 6 weeks ago, I figured he was as good as God. Like, I thought that the SRU were using the Skyscanner sponsorship to get him home. Now, I'm a bit like, they've had a really good end to the season. And maybe they're not the plucky losers. Maybe they should have won. But a URC quarterfinal in South Africa at altitude against the Bulls is not the easiest quarterfinal to get through. So, did they do the best they could in that situation? Is getting that squad to a Challenge Cup semi-final a good achievement? I honestly, as of about 6 weeks ago, I don't know. A, is he safe? B, should he be safe? I can't make my mind up. I go both ways on it.
Yeah, Mark, I have to say I'm with Jonny. I listened to the way Jamie Ritchie spoke after the game. I think it was the Ulster game. Was it Ulster game? Anyway, the game that got us into the quarterfinals, and I was kind of looking at it going, well, if Jamie Ritchie believes, then maybe I should believe, and maybe we should give him another, an opportunity because, well, who are we going to get at this moment in time? Because I don't want to have to, bring some other person that we've not heard of or has been fired by 3 different other clubs to come into Edinburgh to try and save their career. But also on the other side of things, he has started to build, and just as Jonny says, the results have started to come, and it's a real confusion, for me being prop, me confused. It's I have conflicting because I have not thought that Sean Everett should have been Edinburgh coach since he was announced. And
Yes.
I am absolutely, I've been on that all the way through. I've been consistent. And, and now when it's the time that actually he may be going home, I'm now going, oh, maybe we shouldn't. And it's a real, I don't know what to do, Mark.
Yeah, no, I feel similarly but different. I mean, like you, Craig, as you know, I've thought from day one that he should not have been Edinburgh coach. He was a poor appointment for me, and there is nothing that I have seen until the last 4 to 6 weeks that has made me think he's the right coach for Edinburgh. I think we're saying, yeah, they're playing well. Yeah, he's had 2 years. And they've been playing well for 6 weeks. Whoop.
Yeah.
Do you think an employer would give me the best part of 2 years to prove myself? That was rhetorical because the answer is obvious, right?
Yeah. And they haven't won anything. And they haven't shown, we all kind of went, well, they're in the quarterfinals now, but they're probably going to get beaten.
Yeah.
And they're in the semi-finals for the cup, for the Challenge Cup, but they're up against Bath. They're probably going to get beaten.
And let's be quite clear, the reason that they got beaten at the weekends was because they were playing the Bulls.
Yeah.
If they turned in a couple of decent games 6 months ago, not 6 weeks ago, they wouldn't have been playing the Bulls. They might have been playing, who knows, Scarlets, Glasgow,
Yeah. At home. Yeah.
So fundamentally, should he be going? Yes, but only if they can replace him. And the point you made is quite right. They should bin him and get a decent coach. But based on the conversation we've just had about what coaches have to do in Scotland, we won't attract one.
The coach I was hoping to get has just been announced at Connacht. So, I would have liked to have had Lancaster. Whether people agree with me or not, or think I'm an absolute lunatic saying that, because he's never really proved himself apart from when he was in the Leinster sort of bubble. But Leinster are a poorer team without him, and I don't think his way or his type of coaching really suited Racing at all, because you just need to look at Owen Farrell and how he's gone over and he's not fitted into them either. So it's a real difficult one. But anyway, he's gone now, so there's no much more chance of talking about him.
Lancaster was the one I've always talked up, as you know, is Toby Booth. But we'll not get somebody of that profile if what we're saying is somebody in a suit could change the rules next month after your contract comes in, and you're now only allowed to pick players with dark hair.
Yeah.
Whatever, right?
Gingers.
Gingers, yeah. You're only allowed to pick gingers for Scottish teams, right? Pasty ginger people. That's what we need more of. Because that's what you're talking about. And no coach who has a chance of getting a good contract elsewhere is going to buy that. So, yes, I think Everett should go if he can be replaced. But no, I don't think they'll be able to replace him. And I think he's the kind of coach that will sit there tugging his forelock and going, yeah, just keep paying me. That's fine. I'll do what you say.
So he is far away from his family, and so maybe there is the opportunity if he decides to go, he goes. But I don't know. Anyway, we've talked enough about that, because we talk regularly about Sean Everett going or leaving. Going or leaving. That's a double thing. It's staying or leaving. But anyway, we'll go on to happier things. Jonny, Warriors 36, Stormers 18. Warriors playing well, back to their old selves. They've had their wee blip. Oh, Jonny has just, the minute I start talking about Glasgow Warriors, he has disappeared in a puff of smoke. Maybe the butler has chipped over the USB cable in his mansion over in Fruki. So we'll have to
It must be the excitement because his tech was
just completely and utterly disappeared. So, Mark, Warriors back to playing the way they should play, and seem to play incredibly well.
It's interesting actually because my notes on it during the game and watching it live, I thought, yeah, Glasgow are back. This is the way they should be playing, etc., etc. But when I watched it back, I felt they made harder work of it than it seemed on the day. Jonny,
sorry. The Edinburgh Mafia came for me there because I was about to start getting to talk about Glasgow. That was my overriding feeling in the stadium. Is it could have been much easier. One thing that I kind of took away, and I was sitting next to my Stormers supporting pal. He is from Western Province. He coaches with me, and he was having a miserable time. And I turned around to him at one point and said, "Do you want to go and tell the boys that the first person in should maybe try making a tackle, because Glasgow beat the first tackler almost every time they had the ball. They broke the gain line almost every single time." And from there, I think they sort of got bogged down a little bit. It was really nice to see them back to like the Glasgow that we are used to seeing. But it did kind of feel like they weren't quite there yet, because there was a couple of times that I was like, oh, you could actually have made that a lot easier than you did.
Yeah, but Jonny, I would take their defence every day and twice on Sundays, though. Their defence absolutely was outstanding.
Yeah.
Okay, they let in 18 points, but they let in a big, nasty Stormers pack coming at them on a regular basis all night. And, and again, the guy we've just been talking about stood out and saved Glasgow's blushes many times during the night.
Yeah, he was brilliant. And I know you're not going to like to hear this, because even though he's a lion, his hands are still too small, but Scott Cummings had a great game as well.
We've never really had a discussion about that, actually, Jonny. But to be perfectly honest, I have to say, and I'll admit this on this podcast, because you could probably judge up an old clip, but I didn't think Ali Price should have been on the Lions tour, and he ended up being a Test Lion, first pick Test Lion. So, then they broke him, or Glasgow broke him and then threw him away and gave him to us, and then yippee. So I haven't really talked about Scott Cummings with you, and how I didn't. If you said to me Scott Cummings would go in the Lions, I'd be like, don't be daft. There's no chance. And then all of a sudden,
he wasn't. I'll tell you the fundamental difference, right? Is that Ali Price in 2021, it was a bit like who's going to go as a 9? It might be Ali Price, and we don't know who else, right? Whereas this year, there are so many good second rows.
Yeah.
And like even for like a card carrying Scott Cummings fanboy like myself, never in a month of Sundays would I have picked Scott Cummings to be a Lion. And I hope he goes out and absolutely smashes it now.
He's got a chance to be a Test Lion. He really does. If he's going to, ape Ali Price, I wonder how his ruck speed is. But anyway, that's a different story. But yeah, Jonny, Leinster's next. And we've had a little bit of a joke and a laugh, about this. We're not going to have much to talk about next week, because that'll be all of the Scottish rugby over with. But Leinster have really shown a very soft underbelly at this moment in time, and they may have all the gap year students that they have coming to play for them on the world tour, but they fundamentally have got a problem, and it seems to be mental at this moment in time.
Yeah, it's two things. One is the mentality thing. The other thing is there's a few teams have worked out that if you could get around them quickly, you'll get good returns from it. Scarlets did really well when they got fast to the outside and got around them. Saints, when they got fast to the outside, got around them, absolutely took them to shreds. And if you want to talk about a team that can get fast around the outside of you. You saw what Glasgow did to Stormers on Friday night. Now, I will caveat that by saying I still don't think Glasgow are going to win. I think the fact that Xander's not playing could be a big difference because the scrum struggled a bit against Stormers. The scrum got absolutely marmalised in the Leinster game where they beat us really badly in the Champions Cup. I'd have felt a lot better if Xander was back, but I do think that the things that Leinster have been exposed at the last few weeks are things that Glasgow are good at. But it's going to have to be like Glasgow do all of that perfectly every time they get an opportunity. And I don't know, they didn't look like that was coming on Friday night. Maybe another week will do it, but I don't have a lot of hope, but I do have a bit of hope in that sort of area.
Yeah, and Mark, I think Jonny makes a very, really good point here, because if you look at, for example, a Felix Jones defending England, who were all about the blitz up to about 12, up to about, inside, maybe just a little bit outside centre blitz. Scotland took them apart in the Six Nations because they moved the ball to the outside and got the ball into, Finn Russell, Johnny Sexton in it around the outside, and then putting the ball out to either a Darcy, well, not a Darcy at that point in time, but a Blair Kinghorn and a Doohan, etc. Glasgow are just the right people to do that sort of thing because it's in their DNA.
Oh yeah, and you're right. It's not just the way they play; it's absolutely in their DNA. You can see it with the way the players react to things that go on the field. It's instinctive for all of them, and not just the Josh Mackay's of this world and Kyle Stein, but I mean Kyle Rowe. Some of the breaks he made on the outside on Saturday pass were just fabulous, And yeah, I mean, it's the old thing, and Johnny's kind of right. Will Glasgow win? Probably unlikely. Can Glasgow win? Absolutely. They have. I hate to say it because I sound so much like I'm just a broken record again. They need to get parity refereeing that they didn't have the last time they were in Dublin.
Yay, Andrea Piatti.
Yeah.
The thing is, though, and
last time, wasn't it?
And I'll take I'm a neutral in this now, although I'm not neutral. I want Glasgow to beat Leinster, and I'll say that twice. I want Glasgow to beat Leinster, but what I would say, however, is that everyone told Glasgow that they can't go to South Africa and win. Everyone told Glasgow they can't go to South Africa and be in altitude and win. Everyone told Glasgow they couldn't go to Munster, go down to Limerick and win. Mm-hmm. Everyone expected Glasgow to be beaten by Munster. Everyone expected them to be beaten in the final. Yep. So the next one on the tick list of Glasgow upturning the apple cart is you can't go. I think is it Croke Park they're playing at?
Croke Park, yeah.
Yeah, you can't go to Croke Park or the Aviva and beat Leinster. Glasgow are saying, "Well, hold my beer," and I think this is their URC final. I really do think this. They've got a good chance of beating Leinster and then absolutely totally ruining it in the final. But this is their opportunity, and I think they'll be up for it.
And the thing is, the key to doing it is there. Saints and Scarlets have shown the key. And Glasgow are better at that than Scarlets and at least as good as Saints. So they need to take what those two teams have done and go, all right, do you know what? We can do that. We can do it well. So let's go out and do it and see what happens.
I wonder if Croke Park's a mistake on Leinster's part. Because the whole kind of Leinster hoodoo for Glasgow is associated with the Aviva. Or the RDS, sorry.
Well, the RDS is getting rebuilt at the moment, is it? Is that right? Why they're not using the RDS? Because they've not used the RDS all season.
All right.
I think
they just fancied the Aviva because they're daddy's favourites.
Well, there is that as well. So,
but I do wonder if that takes, that's a new ground for a lot of the Glasgow players, but it's going to be a new ground for a lot of the Leinster players as well.
yeah. Oh, come on now.
It's a huge place, and it's going to be absolutely random.
What you remember is Geordie McBarrett, who was Geordie O'Barrett, I should say. His relatives they built Croke Park, did they not?
Yeah, probably.
Aye. Anyway, right. So Glasgow got their hands full at the weekend. Edinburgh are watching Glasgow have their hands full. So we will move on to the last bit of tonight, and we will do this.
Hands in the air, who has got their hands in the air? Hands in the air, hands in the air, who has got their hands in the air?
So I'll keep Jonny till last because I think he's going to be here for a while. Mark, what has been ripping your knitting this week?
So I would like to think about some way of improving scrum refereeing, specifically scrum refereeing, because I think what we're seeing a lot of more and more is, and I noticed it particularly with both the games at the weekend, is refs, they're reffing what they expect to see rather than what they actually see. And what they expect to see is South African teams dominating. And therefore, whatever's going on at the scrum, the South African front rows are getting more of the advantage than whoever their opponents are. And I think in the nicest possible sense, it's just because they don't know what's going on, right? The refs genuinely don't know what's going on. And maybe we need to talk about getting a specialist TMO or something to help them with that. Because there was a couple of scrums lost by both Glasgow and Edinburgh that absolutely could have gone either way or been reffed completely the opposite.
Yeah, and this is the problem though with scrums, is the fact that we don't want to slow the game up anymore. And they've been taking a few steps to try and speed it up a little bit. And I don't want to lose scrums altogether. So I have to say I'm on the side of speeding it up a little bit. My issue is, well, to play devil's advocate again, Mark, we are seeing a lot more scrum refereeing, as in, I'm hearing a lot more calls of, to do with feet being too far back, etc. And there's been a few. We had one. I remember who was it now? Was it Matt Carley that started pulling Porter apart? He was. I don't know if it was the World Cup or if it was, and there was a game that he absolutely took Porter apart every time Porter went into.
It can't see. The problem with this is that can't have been it, because two of the most foundational principles of my own existence on this earth are that, one, I absolutely love to see Andrew Porter be destroyed at scrum time and refereed properly, and I think it's hilarious. And two, I will never say anything complimentary about Matthew Carley. So,
so for those things to be correct, it would cause
one of them has to be wrong.
A break in the space-time continuum happening right there. Yeah,
yeah. It's like you saw yourself in Back to the Future. You opened the door and found yourself on the other side of the door, and you've just it's an odd one, because he did that. It was one game, and he absolutely pulled Porter apart, and then all of a sudden it all went quiet, and then Porter was doing exactly the same thing. However, I think there's a lot of tight head props that go up against Porter who emphasise that quite dramatically, because we can, as Mark knows, you used to, apart from punching the other boy in the face when you're in the scrum, to try and get the best of it, or try to rip into the hooker with your head, you were trying to paint a picture for the referee who didn't know much about scrums.
Yeah.
And I think that's a similar thing at the moment. In fact, it's got to a point now where it's become a profession to paint a picture a certain way, in the scrums, and the referees are buying it.
Yeah. Yes, absolutely. And and some props are excellent about it. But it's becoming, and like you, I struggle, Craig, because I don't want to see scrums gone from the game.
Yeah.
And I do think scrums get a really bad press. If we lose scrums, we might as well just be league, right? Because that's what causes us to have lots of different shaped players, different levels of fitness, different abilities, etc., etc. Lose scrums, and you're going to end up basically with a team full of back row forwards. Simple as that. The biggest, tallest, quickest guys you can get, right?
Yeah.
So we can't lose scrums, but they need to be pushing contests, not penalty contests. And I think that's been part of the issue, maybe.
Yeah. Well, it'll be an interesting one to see how it goes. I don't know if World Rugby are going to bring out any new scrummage laws, or well, certainly not. I don't know if they don't seem to be educating their referees that much. But,
I was watching a clip. I can't remember why I saw it, but it was a couple of weeks ago of a Scotland-France game back in the 80s when the Bear was playing. That's Ian Milne for all you kids in the audience. Google him. And they just scrum awarded, front rows folded into it, got on with it, and the ball's gone. It was just, the scrums were almost instantaneous.
Yeah.
Now I know they've changed some of the laws for safety, like there's no hit, but there was no hit in that.
Hit was my favourite bit, but that's a different story.
Yeah, I did the Squidge Rugby World Cup retrospective thing that Robbie and Will have been doing for years, going through every single game, and they asked me to do Scotland Portugal 2007. So I sat down to watch the game, and the first scrum, and I was playing in 2007, but the first scrum, and I was sitting watching, I was like, Jesus, I did not remember that. It's like a full-on, grab him at arm's length and drive. And I was like,
yeah.
How are people not dying every single? It was wild.
Yeah. There's a definite pointer to why people are getting neck injuries, but that's a different story. So, Jonny, what has come up? Well, I think we all know, but what has been ripping your knitting this week?
I don't know. Without the capacity to swear, what more I can say about this first round of Nusaforoing that we've just all gone through?
Nusaforoing. Here we go. We've coined it. That's it. That's what I want to know.
I fundamentally do not understand it. There's not a single bit of it that makes any sense to me. Other than, possibly you save a little bit of money by abusing young Scottish players and putting them into URC lineups during the international breaks. 19-year-old academy players are going to be going on the South Africa tours now, like Wales are doing. Dragons were flying boys out from the Welsh Premiership to play in the front row in South Africa. That's what's going to happen. That is absolutely rotten.
Yeah, because we've not got Javan Sebastian anymore. He's away back to Cardiff.
Yeah.
Shocking.
So genuinely, what is the plan? What are we going to do? Who goes on those trips now?
Yeah.
Xander's not going to South Africa in March, is he? So who's going? Rory Darge isn't going, so who's going to go to South Africa to play those teams? You saw what happened to the Dragons. It was bordering on dangerous, and that's what we're getting into.
Yeah,
it's there is not an iota of that makes sense to me. It's wild.
Yeah, I totally agree,
and that's all I can say without going Patreon mode. I word swearing. I do. That was one of the Hands of the Rocks from Blue Sky as well. Someone saying Henko Venter, and then the other one was Leslie. Yeah, it was Naxis head Henko Venter. Yeah, and Leslie, good friend of the pod, Leslie, saying this new R360 thing, which is one of the
Yeah.
stupidest ideas in the world. I saw Tom, who does Three Red Kings, the Monster podcast and blog and stuff, put it really well. He said this R360 and everyone who's associated with it is heavily Dubai coded. And I was a bit like, yeah, that's exactly what it is.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you what, they've made themselves some powerful enemies. I don't know if you saw this. Ilona Mayer features very heavily in the branding for R360.
Yes.
She is not affiliated with R360 in any way. And on her Instagram story, bearing in mind that she is the most followed rugby account in all of rugby, player, team, union, or whatever, just posted a selfie of herself, and the comment said something like, stop using my likeness to promote your brand if I'm not in any way associated with your brand. I'm asking nicely for now. It's like, lads.
Oh, nice.
You have got yourself into some spots of bother here for your for your frankly all-round terrible and badly thought out idea.
And let's be honest, does that not just go to show what a completely unprofessional cluster it is?
Yeah.
Again, I'm struggling with the patron language.
Yeah. It'll not last a week, I don't think. I think we've probably seen the last of it now, but it's one of the, like, in a sport riddled with stupid ideas, it's one of the stupider ideas I've seen in a while. And Tom's right, it's like heavily sports washing petrol state in the background vibes coming from it.
Yeah. But they've clearly thought about it for a while, they've punted it around, they've got the petrol states money behind them. They'll have thought about, right, we need to splash this, we need to hit all the press, we need to hit the socials, we need to do that. Here's a great idea. We'll use a picture of somebody that's not affiliated with us, and we have not even asked them if we can use it. Marketing, guys, that's just well done. You know,
it's only rugby, right? It's only
that's
rugby.
the level of their professionalism setup. Why would you invest any cash in that? I wouldn't be touching it.
Yeah, well, for me, my hands in the ruck is a slightly odd one, and I'll bear with me on this one, because Adidas announced the first ever women's based or women's fit rugby boot, and Ilona Mayer is involved in that, and obviously she's a brand ambassador for Adidas, or has just been signed up, and they've got this range of boots coming out. And that is in fabulous, women's fit rugby kit. Great. We've been screaming out for it for ages. Women around the world have had to be dealing with men's fit rugby kit for a long time playing rugby. How much would it cost someone like Adidas, Canterbury, Mizuno, Nike, to put a set of boots, one pair of boots, on every single international player's feet?
Yeah.
How much would it cost them to do it? Because we know where they make these boots, and we know how much these boots will be getting made for.
Yeah.
Think of what they could. Think of the moral and what's the word? The moral and the amazing marketing that they would get by putting a pair of boots on every single international player.
Yeah.
Because there are international players out there who have to buy their own boots and are crowdfunding for kit as we speak. And it is an absolute, we would never have that happen in the men's game. No. There are boot sponsors falling over themselves to put boots on men's. And
I know for a fact. 12 so I know guys playing grassroots clubs, people I play against on a fairly regular basis, people I've played with in the past, who are kicking about on a Saturday afternoon in regional leagues wearing boots that were given to them by professional players, and not necessarily internationals, professional club players who came from their grassroots clubs, because they've got so many pairs of boots they don't know what to do with them.
Yeah. So I just did a little bit of maths. I'm making some assumptions about the production cost of the boots. And if you say the top 12 teams in the top 12 international teams each with a squad of 50 players, so that's quite a lot, you're probably talking about less than 20 grand, which is buttons to a company like that. They'll lose that down the back of their sofas, right?
It probably cost 20 grand to do the advertising campaign with Ilona Meyer for the boots.
Mate, it'll cost 10 times that to do an advertising campaign.
That's probably one day's promoted Instagram posts.
Yeah. So it just, I don't understand I would love one of those companies just to go, you know what? Let's do this.
Yeah. And you know what? See if they stop to think about it for a second. And like that was like an offhand, it probably is a day's promoted Instagram post, right? What do we spend all of our time saying is that women's rugby, women's players are so much more social media savvy, so much more exciting on the socials than men's players are. So take one day of your Instagram posts, use it to get every player on every team a decent pair of your proper women's fit boots. And Rona Lloyd's TikTok's amazing. Ilona Mayer's Instagram, we already said, is the most followed rugby account in the world. Portia Woodman's Instagram's amazing. Jazz Joyce's Instagram's brilliant. Like, you'd make it back in players opening them up and going, I've just been sent this pair of boots.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just...
you can't buy advertising like that.
Sorry?
You can't buy advertising like that.
It beggars belief. But so that was my... I applaud them for finally investing in making a pair of boots that are designed for women. I'm not taking anything away from that, but I just feel we're not talking about every single women's rugby player or even team players. It's every international player that plays for their country. Just think of what you could do, how much it would have cost, and what it would have done.
So let's take the Quins as an example, right? Which is the women's team at the club I play for. Craig used to coach the Quins. If there's two Quins in the Scotland World Cup wider squad, if they both got given a pair of free boots by Adidas to take to the World Cup, whose boots do you think every single player on their grassroots team is going to go out and buy?
Yeah. It's a really good point. Yeah,
absolutely.
Because they're all still pals. Molly Pullman, who's in the Scotland squad, Molly came down to the Sevens to hang out with the Quins because she's still pals with them all. See if my pal had just been given a free pair of rugby boots and I needed to buy myself a new set of rugby boots, I'd buy them for the company that was giving my pal a free set.
Yeah, big time.
Absolute no-brainer.
Big time. And there's enough of that knock-on to pay that 20 grand in a heartbeat.
Yeah, absolutely.
So you got to beg the question of why are we coming up with this? They've got some really expensive marketing people, and genuinely, I mean, it could be maybe my rule of thumb about the cost is wrong. Maybe it's 50 grand, but it's still buttons.
I honestly don't understand it. You think of Adidas or Nike, or Mizuno, Canterbury, take one less pair of boots that they give to a professional player in the men's team and give them to a women's international player.
Yeah.
One less pair. I'm not talking about taking away, their multiple pairs of boots. One pair.
Yeah, I mean, even just doing really basic maths, top 12 international teams, 50 players per squad, which is a big number. Even if the boots are costing them 100 quid, that's only 60 grand.
Yeah.
Like you say, 3 days of Instagram for 60 grand? That's...
Anyway.
Yeah, I don't understand.
On that note, on that confused dog sideways head-on look from everybody, thank you so much, Jonny and Mark, for joining me tonight. It's been a good chat. To all of you out there listening and also downloading us, etc., I hope you've enjoyed the pod. If you want to support us in what we do and get some extra content, please do go to, I think it's www.patreon.com/Scottish Rugby Podcast, I think. And that will take you to our Patreon page and you can become a patron. You can pay up in one lump or you can pay it up a monthly and support us in what we do, and you get a little bit extra. And you also get ad-free standard pods as well. It's been a great chat. Thank you, gentlemen, and thank you all for joining us. And we will see you next week and see how Glasgow have got on.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Craig. Thanks, Jonny.
Bye all.
Bye all.
Guys.